is a really, challenging topic. Like there's a huge amount that is unknown. Even the three states of water are just, that's a bizarro thing that is very difficult to explain scientifically.
And another thing that, that's a great example, just like the H2O is the wrong notion,
right.
The three states.
Yeah.
Water transfers from all those three, but not in a digital way, in an analog way.
Right.
So water has infinite states. Mm. We just chose three very important identifiable ones.
Right. So
but
why do you say infinite states, though?
Because between gas and water, there's infinite moments that are not gas or water. Between water and ice, there's slush, and there's many, and Newtonian fluids, and so on and so on.
Right.
Water has infinite states.
Yeah.
That's another thing we're going to correct.
So if you take something like that and you do a paper on it and it is accepted, then you have credibility. Mm-hmm. Once you get credibility, you get to do the next one, and that's what's really important and interesting. And sometimes it's the pieces. I think you're so immersed, you forget what important pieces you're speaking about. Right. You know what I mean? And so you'll start, and I'll say, "Oh, wait," and you may have even told me this last time, but it's hard to keep track of some of it.
It's too much.
Which is so like why it's invisible, and I know why it's important, but why? Yeah. And then, water has motion, and then it's like, okay, now we got to talk about gravity, and we got to talk about these other things too. I mean, it seems like there's baby steps before, like going, water is consciousness. If we could see it that easily, we would have already done that. Mm-hmm. But the incremental steps to, and it can be a perspective. What the word consciousness means,
right.
Just that perspective. That's what gets interesting. So in the incremental steps, so that's why I say get on Google Scholar for a month, and I think you're going to find more stuff on there, because once you find one thread in there that begins to feed a certain particular notion, you're going to find
I do know the experiment, okay, right? If we were to say the experiment.
Yeah.
So basically, it's taking a closed system, completely closed and clean from the environment.
Right.
Soil, dirt, let's say. Yeah. Building blocks, clean, no seeds, no bacteria, no signs of life.
Right.
Water, clean, no plankton, no signs of life.
Right.
Sun, energy.
Yeah.
Right? These are the conditions. Planet Earth, day one.
Yeah.
No structures of any kind, no architecture.
Right.
Raw material, raw water, sun.
Right.
That experiment was done.
It was done, yeah. They did it.
And what came out of that was amino acids.
Right.
The conclusion they made was we didn't do the experiment well enough. There was contamination. That's why we get amino acids. Because in their mind, water... So, there's no way that this can happen. So the only way that it happened, they set up the experiment to prove the opposite.
Right.
But then this happened. So they changed the parameters. And suddenly they say, we failed. It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do the same experiment.
Yeah.
And 100 of them.
Yeah.
All over the world.
Right.
And see and show people that all it takes is raw material, water, and sun, and life starts from scratch every day on this planet.
Actually, what is the chemistry of water to you? Like, what is the breakdown of water?
I don't break it down. Water is. You can't break it down further. If anything, if you do, and only people can, only water can break down water, we might find out in the future that it's a crime. That you're actually taking a water cell and you're chopping off its hands, or you're breaking its essence. So that's why I said water is a continuum. And that's, I think, another thing we'll prove here, is that water is the thing itself. Water has not evolved. It's the only thing on this planet that is the same from day one, that has not changed. We're talking about millions of years, millions of structures it's been gone through, trees, people, all that, and it's still the same. But I'll accept it. Fine. O and two H's. Fine. But that doesn't mean to me that the O or the H is the thing itself, just because you found a way to chop off my head. Doesn't mean that, a person is a combination of head, arms, and a torso. No, there's a system. There's something else going on, right? So that's what I mean. We look at water too simply. And that's what I talked about with Neil deGrasse. Like, he lectures and he says, water is H2O. That's it. That's water. Like, we can't say that.
There has to be a way to observe it and discover its matrix, to discover, without the observation, because that could be another thing, is define what that is, you know, because there is a way to observe it,
Right.
and there is a content to it that can be described. And if you can do that, it's irrefutable from that point forward.
Right.
If you do it so well, you know, people can say the earth is round, and the flat earthers will scream and yell, but then we will put a satellite up and it will hold up.
Right.
So it might be 100, 200 years, or maybe
Sure.
10 years, or even 5 years, or 1 year after it's described properly. But that seems like another thing too, because clarification of what that is gives then people relevance, gives people, you know, position on it, which is really interesting.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, I have patience, we have time, I'm not in a rush, because the idea is to get it out there correctly, slowly, respectfully, like all those things. Like
Yeah.
we try to get there, without the emotion and all that.
Well,
but
that's a part of it.
But you know, it is the goal.
Well, and that's what I'm intrigued with now, because now, you know, you're taking it further, and so I take it further. I go, oh, okay. Well, what would I think? How would it go into Scientific American? How can it pull down walls of academic bias and science bias even? And, you know, I always heard the pyramid, you know, and they speak about God's eye, and you can be on any one side and you don't understand the other sides,
Right.
but you do understand your side. And then as you get to the top, you slowly keep scaling, because it's wisdom, it's insight. Then you get to the top and you realize, like, oh,
Now
these
I get
other
it.
4 sides do play.
Right.
So, you know, without discounting those things, but elevating, you know,
So
your own.
that's actually the feeling right now when you truly embrace water,
Yeah.
and the theory behind it. That's
Yeah.
the feeling. You're watching and you're looking at science, and you're looking at religion, and you're looking at psychology, and you're looking at all of them,
Yeah.
and they're fighting,
Yeah.
and they're running up thinking one will discredit the other,
Right.
the other is wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing how all of them are right at the same time,
Yeah.
and that's the point. It's
Well,
it's at
that's-
that moment.
yeah.
When you see 2 people arguing, but you see that both of them are right at the same time, that's when you win.
Because you're coming with like a feeling and a perspective and an insight that's really, you know,
But
it's
also
unique.
consider a reality also, which I don't know at all if it will happen, but what if we do take water out of the equation of matter? What if we come to science and we say, hey guys, thank you. You took this by mistake, it's ours. Let us deal with this.
Yeah.
You know, that's a possibility too. So that's why I'm open to everything, you know,
Yeah.
and that's why I think probably what I need to do is I'm planning to take classes in biology now,
Great.
but I probably need to do also quantum mechanics, because I think quantum mechanics was born out of the need to address the conscious side of life. What does quantum mechanics talks about? Oh, if I'm making an experiment, I'm affecting it.
Right.
So what are they saying? They're saying there's consciousness here in the experiment reacting to me, or my consciousness affecting that.
Yeah.
There you go. They can't stop anymore. They can't wait for Newton to talk about consciousness, because it's not his job.
Yeah.
You see, it's 2 different sciences.
Yeah.
The sciences of matter should be predictable, repeatable, the same, because
Yeah.
there's no life in it. It's not, and there could be a level of consciousness in it, but it's passive.
Yeah.
That's where I'm putting a line. I'm saying active, passive.
Yeah.
Sure, everything has some movement in it. Sure,
Yeah.
everything is, but the reality, will this chair get up and eat at any point of its life? Will it do anything different at any point in its life? If water is not present, whether it's weather that weathers it,
Yeah.
or me that made it and uses it. That's the moment. Active, passive, active, passive.
Because you're in so many diverse areas, because topic is it's that like Zen notion.
some
It's so
way.
diverse, it's super complex.
In some ways, I would rather if, I didn't have to spend so much time at explaining things that are so logical. Like for me, what's interesting is how does a person watches sea creatures, jellyfishes, the complexity and technology that exists in the ocean,
Yeah.
plankton, all those things,
Yeah.
and not see what I see. That's to me is a place where, you see, so for me, it's more what is going on. Then I start realizing, oh, that's what you see. Oh, that's what you think. And then I started going, why do you think that? And then I go and find out, all the philosophers of, the beast machine and all people thinking, yeah, we're automated. Most of our philosophy happened before microscopes, but we still follow it.
Sure.
So
The language.
So there's a lot there in the way that we think about life and think right now that is not aligned. And so for me, again, that's where the emotion comes from. It's like, it hurts me that you don't see that. It hurts me that you ride a horse and you don't see that the horse is a person. It's like I would take you and ride you right now. It's not different, you know. So those things, you really, I'm already changing, you know. So there is a lot of emotion that comes from there, from logic, actually, from and some pain.
Sure.
You know, you watch consciousness, not other.
Yeah.
In pain.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to stop that.
Yeah.
Or I want to make it better.
Yeah.
And it can be better. Now, all the pain we have, we chose because it's part of our movement forward, growth, and gaining independence in space.
Sure.
That's what consciousness wants and water wants. So in that sense, there is a functional side to it.
Yeah. And it's interesting to, you know, this is that fascinating thing of speaking of consciousness and for consciousness is a tricky thing, because then you are
we all are. There's no other option.
Well, then there's
no other
fascinating
option.
Because then if we all are.
And everything exists in consciousness. I don't go and say consciousness is all good. It's all happy. No, everything that happens right now is happening.
Yeah.
But what you do see is that the environment that you throw consciousness into, you know, harsh environment will create harsh people.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Look at the places. Look at where the harshest people on the planet came from.
Yeah.
The harshest environments, right? And then it's really, you got to take a step back. I don't even blame people. I blame where water was spilled into, and that environment, it had to deal with that. And everything that happened was a reaction to that.
Yeah.
So going back to natural selection, it's not the environment that selects life. It's not the environment that selects movement of life. It is movement of life facing the environment.
Yeah.
And the environment then shapes you a certain way because you want to be the most efficient and functional you can be in that environment.
Right.
So we have this notion of like natural selection, the environment selects. I'm like, no, that's passive. There's no selection happening there. And let's walk one step back. The movement of life. Yeah. Before selection. Yeah. So what is before selection? Yeah. You see, so that's why a lot of times you end up in philosophy.
Well, and philosophy often, I mean, you know, what is philosophy? I mean, philosophy is a formal guessing. Really, it's a formality of guessing, of trying to attach connection where it's hard to, and that's interesting, but I think more grounding or more, you know, than just kind of going on the architectural brain, you know, or the science brain. The faster way is to be careful of philosophy, because philosophy is easier to discredit. You know, if you pull up all the Google things and you find some sort of line there, which is, I think, going to be harder, you know, on a certain level, but on a certain level, I think it's easier in the fastest way, because it lays a groundwork to show the proof, to show the analysis. Why is it consciousness and not philosophy? Why is it present? And maybe even certain shortcomings. Like, hey, here's a gap. I can't exactly observe what, you know, define exactly maybe what water is or consciousness. But I'll philosophize, or someone can philosophize about that and plug that in. Right. But let me show, like, as you said, there's 100 experiments. But people didn't look at the left side, and they looked at the bottom side, because that wasn't what they were looking at, or wasn't what they were able to see. Right. But it exists. It's all there. It's, you know, and that, I think, informs what you're talking about. Because when you start talking about non-Newtonian and you start doing that, well, this is a debate, right? But it seems like if you go philosophy, you got to stick philosophy. If you go science, you got to stick science. You got to be careful.
It is.
It is to help the furthering of it.
Exactly, because there is a place where specific places in science right now that things are set in stone. Yeah. And philosophy, the beauty of philosophy is that, and I think every scientist needs a bit of philosophy in his methodology. Philosophy will never let you be set in stone.
Right. Well, this is what we say: steam versus
right?
stem.
So like you'll never be set in. You can never take anything for granted.
Right. This is
And
where art comes
right
in.
now,
Yeah.
right now, my criticism about the politics in science, because I don't generalize science,
Yeah.
like I don't generalize religion.
Yeah.
But specifically in the politics of science, there is a direction that is set in stone and taking things for granted.
Yeah.
When we just agreed that we don't know what water is.
Sure.
So just say I'm 99.9% sure
Yeah.
until I know that 1% water. It's not an important thing, but we'll give it a 1%. All right. So that's where philosophy is keeping us right now safe, actually, because we're about to lock in something that is very dangerous for consciousness.
Yeah.
If we acknowledge that humans are automated robots and because single cells are robots, then that's very dangerous. On the other hand, what I'm claiming is single cells are conscious, hence you are conscious.
But what's dangerous about it?
If you want to become a man-machine one day that has no freedom of speech and no freedom of expression, that's the road.
Yeah.
If you want to lose the value of human life, that's the road.
See, because I think what happens is there's a counterbalance that happens. So every time somebody walks down the wrong way, it's only for a certain amount of time.
Right, there's a pendulum.
It's a pendulum because it doesn't work. And this is so I have such trust in outcome that it's like, yeah, okay, if you want to walk down the go, I mean, it'll hurt and you'll be back because you'll have to be, because so truth is so fascinating because truth is not somebody that's chosen. It's something that just continues to happen, whether or not you acknowledge it or not.
It's its own thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's independent. And so if you have truth in this, then it will continue to
Exactly.
and that's what's exciting is for me. That's why I kind of push the science aspect because the usefulness of it beyond the joy of comfort, of centering, of all these philosophical notions, it will be useful. It will do things better as a result. That's what I'm so intrigued with is
right.
And the push, my
it's
personal
very functional.
push.
I mean,
Well,
at the end, once you know more about water, can you imagine? Because I think, like, for example, one of my passions is working with living material as you consume it, meaning the way we treat our food.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about the chemicals, and it's the water in the food.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that will make you sick or not.
Interesting. Yeah.
How are we not addressing life in what we're eating, in that sense, and how we treat life after we're done with it, meaning compost.
Yeah.
So in our daily life, we actually torture water and send it back to the stream only to come back to our body. So there's a lot of functionality that comes out of that.
Right.
And I think that's where we're not addressing it. We live in a nature that is empty of consciousness and feelings and knowledge and intelligence other than our own brains.
Right.
That's a contradiction.
Well, some people...
That's a big contradiction. How are we living then?
Right.
How is this possible, right? So everything around you has to be taken care of with the same care and with the same care, level of care that we do to our...
Well, what you're talking about is so fascinating because it fits into certain paradigm, like organic farming makes more sense to what you're talking about. So there's a whole group, including myself, that's like, yes, of course, this is a better way, and it proven scientifically.
Exactly.
It takes care of the earth, it takes care of the soil, it takes care of the growing. So there is, you're agreeing with forms that exist.
I'm in agreement.
They're agreeing with you.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with everyone once they actually hear what I have to say.
Well,
that's something that so far I found.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of the people that criticize, they only get the few first seconds, and they're like, too spiritual, not scientific. See ya.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's hard. It's hard.
And then it's fine. I'm totally fine with that at this point.
It's a conversation. Yeah.
I'm going to address many different audiences in many different ways.
They're going to. But the good news is they're responding that way because you haven't refined it enough, and they're supposed to.
I'm totally aware of that.
Yeah, and that's what's great. But what's cool is you take that.
One of the questions that I'm interested in, and every time I'm on Reddit and there's a scientist and they're like, ask me anything, first question I ask them is, would there be science without consciousness?
No, of course. Well, I don't. Yeah, I mean that's one of those.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my
mysteries,
obvious
right?
answer. I mean, especially after talking about this for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, of course. You know.
Yeah.
But right now, there are some of the most popular TED Talks are of people saying that single cells are robots and automated, and people are too. So, and to me,
Wait, why? What do you mean? Single cells are robots.
oh, that everything is automated, fully automatic. That
Okay.
consciousness is only a rise of level of computation in your brain. They're confused. They saw a computer being made by consciousness. Now they think, oh, this is how we were made. I'm like, no, but you made the wrong conclusion because there was a designer in that equation, and now
Right.
you're taking the same equation and you're saying that happened randomly in nature.
Right.
What they specifically did is they tested the body. They tested like the eyes. So now your body is a vehicle,
Right.
architecture, technology that consciousness is using. So what he did, he actually proved that this is a technology. So he tested the eyes and he tricked the eyes. But that's all he did, this scientist. He tricked the eye, which I can do too. I can trick my camera once I know how it works, because it's a technical thing.
Right. That's interesting.
But that's real, and that's what I want people to, you know, when they come across talks about consciousness or channel water, it's like, take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time with yourself first. Then take time with science and how they frame you as far as
Right.
your own. Are you the source of your thought? Are you independent? Are you conscious?
Well, but it's also perspectives too, because is it damaging to have another perspective? You know, to even consider
No.
oneself a robot. I mean,
Not at all.
as long as the diversity of notion of whatever a robot is diverse enough to hold.
Right. But
Or
I'm saying again, both of us are saying truth at the same time.
Right.
My body is a machine. That's the robot he talks about.
Right.
I am conscious. That's the consciousness I'm talking about. And there's two sciences here.
Yeah.
But one science has abducted ours. You can't take water in a category of matter and then apply everything you apply on matter on water. You cannot do that. It doesn't work. Look at your own science. Every time you get an abnormal, you know, something that is not normal, doesn't fit your science. I want to help science be more credible.
Well,
Take water out. You're 100% true. Nobody will ever discredit anything you found so far. That's the reality. So for passive matter, there is Newtonian science. For conscious matter, there is quantum mechanics. There's another science. I don't know it yet.
yeah.
I don't know it exactly. That's my suspicion. I suspect that that's the case.
Yeah. This is the discussion, the challenge of this discussion. There's going to be a group that's going to run around and say the Earth is flat. There's going to be a group that run around and says the Earth is round.
Right.
But that's all they can do.
Right.
Until they somehow prove one or the other. And we can laugh about it, but we don't know who's saying it's flat and who's saying it's round until we have the first satellite with one of us in it that we trust enough to report back. And that's where it's really interesting.
I'm going to make that satellite.
Right. Like
You know,
where
again-
to spend your energy so that you don't hurt yourself, because you will hurt yourself if you spend too much time and you guys, can't you see it? you know that will hurt eventually.
Yeah.
But if you keep thinking about that bridge, and for whatever reason you're on the island, you're supposed to be because no one else can handle it, or you're whatever connected somehow.
Just doing the work.
Something happened, but that bridge is going to be really. It's going to be the fastest way. It's going to be the coolest way. And of course, just like when the Earth was discovered round, all these amazing, beautiful things came out of that potentiality, you know, and whatever. And this is another step, or maybe this is the final step.
I think it's a good parallel for water, because I feel like water right now is a flat world.
Yeah, right. There you go.
And water has a more complete whole view of like a sphere. So if you take a two-dimensional field compared to a sphere, I think that's where we are in evolution, in knowledge about water, is going from this one to something that is mind-blowing.
Right. And in the book, when you use poetry and you use emotion, I get it. When you're talking about what you're really wanting, which is ultimately you're working in a field that you didn't grow up in. I mean, architecture is a portion, but it's really not PhD.
No, it's not the same linguistic.
No, it's not. And that's cool. But you're wanting to conquer that world.
Yeah.
And I know conquer is a terrible word. You're wanting to open the notion.
I want to be at the level of discussion that they're having. I want to join the discussion, so I need
Which
to
has its certain
upgrade.
bias. Yeah,
Sure.
You getting enough information, enough testing, enough this, enough that, that's viable, and you know that
Right.
you have enough credibility for them to be able to come over. Maybe not all, but 2 or 3 that are like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's beat this up. Let's work with
Yeah.
it. Your openness to that is your credibility ultimately. You know, like, as you and that's kind of, I'm just finishing kind of what you were saying,
Right.
which is, you know,
In that sense, and I'll always walk into the fire.
Yeah.
I won't shy away from it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll walk into it.
yeah,
I'll get beaten up. I'll go back. Like, okay, this is what I did wrong. This is what I need to do better. This is how I'll
Yeah.
make it next time. And then I'll walk back again.
Yeah.
But that's one thing they'll see
Yeah.
is that I'm first of all consistent, committed,
yeah,
and creative. We'll find the ways to get those things. But also, when I come and I talk to people, doesn't matter how big of a critic they are, I don't have judgment to where they are.
yeah,
Because we're just, again, trying to figure it out all together, all the sides of the pyramid, trying to get to the top.
Your poetry and art embraces it. As I say, the topic is really easy in the first book. You know, it's really like, it has a lot of flowing. But when you start insisting on all of these more dynamic, more intense, more entrenched things, then it's like, oh, okay, what do you mean by that? Because ultimately, that's what it is for me. It's like, wait, what do you? I'm not sure I understand. Explain to me, you know. And then as you explain, it's like, oh, that's fascinating. And then you get non-Newtonian as versus Newtonian. And then we go, oh, okay, now this is, you are going to use science. And when you get that giant piece in place, that's going to be fascinating, you know, because, and you'll be able to write a paper on it, a peer-reviewed paper.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. Oh, I mean, that's what needs to happen, because then it's going to be easy to plug it in the other areas. But that's always going to be the one that's going to hold the most.
Getting that one first anchor into the world of saying,
And
well,
a giant.
one thing, and I'll be happy if I just get one thing.
Well, then
Now,
what's going
I'll
to be
be very happy
fascinating?
with that.
You anchor that in the science world, because I'm a STEAM freak. Because I know that art's very important to help STEM. STEM, in and of itself, it loses without creativity, without understanding that all of these things do have a certain, you know, bizarre flexibility that allows for next notions and next evolutions of science.
Right.
So that's going to be really, you know, that's going to be a part, and an interesting part, you know, as you continue creating your different pieces. How people will understand it in a weird way might be after you anchor it in science, then you go back to art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's part of the thing that I think what I'm giving people is just an honest, transparent view of my process.
Yeah, right.
It comes visually, subconsciously.
Yeah.
It starts materializing in some words.
Yeah.
And that's a poem.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of the essence. It's the first words it can find to somehow express itself. Because that's the difficulty, to go from no words to words.
Yeah.
And then I take the poem and I start breaking down the poem into the actual lectures and videos and the knowledge. So I'm just being very honest about it and showing the process too. And I think if you had a chance to watch a scientist, let's say if there was a famous scientist that found, and I'm not comparing myself to any of those, but if you had a chance to view live their channel,
the process, right? Yeah.
And how they did and what they did as it's happening, I think that's fun.
Yeah.
That's great, and it also can be inspiring for those that want to do some of the same.
Yeah.
Then you can watch them hit a wall, and say, "I was wrong. This is a dead end. Now I'm going to go this way, or now maybe you go that way."
Yeah.
But that's what people are witnessing is a living document, is a research that is happening live, and it's a conversation. So a lot of people sometimes feel like, "Oh, you can't say that," because I'm like, well, I just said it, so you can reply to me, so I can reply. That's how we start the conversation. I have to say something.
Yeah. Well, it's nice. What grounds it is your commitment and openness to the forms that are established, be it science, be it art, be it poetry, whatever. And as you move forward with it, your commitment is truth. You're saying I have truth, I understand truth, there's something here, it's irrefutable, and you continue to, you know, whichever format you continue to refine that. And that is really interesting.
And it will be beneficial to the other side too, if I'm wrong. they'll be like, dude, that guy did everything possible to try to prove that point and failed.
Right.
It's over.
Yeah.
You know? So either way, I'll be happy.
Well, you're not going to, I'm sure you're not going to fail. It may or may not be exactly what you think.
It's mainly, I want people to understand our goal.
Yeah.
And our commitment to be honest and true.
Yeah.
So it's not like if towards the end I'll find out something that contradicts what I know, I won't like hide it and be like, okay, let's keep going. Because that's what universities do. And that's what's happening right now. People have been hiding under the carpet water anytime it acted funny. So I'm like, hey, look what's under the carpet here.
Well, but if that's true, find those times.
Exactly.
And point them out.
Exactly. No,
because that's far more interesting. You know what I mean? Like, because you say it, and I'm like, really? What? And then I would love to hear the whats. You know, one episode of the whats would be fascinating. But, but to wrap it up, though, you know, because that's
I'll never stop talking.
Well, I won't either. I think it's really interesting to say the commitment. You know, the commitment of these forms of you know, this idea of water as consciousness, or is consciousness, as proven through science, as proven through art, as proven through experiment, as proven through all these things, that's your commitment. That's where you're going.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime thing. You've already committed a tremendous amount of time and energy.
I give it 50 and I give another 40.
Yeah. So that's you know, that's pretty interesting, and less that people can say, well, he's just crazy. You know, because at first it's like, oh, you know, he's an artist, those damn artists. And then after a while it's like, oh, well, he's very passionate. He could be crazy. Or the next level is like, wow, there's something here. You know, that's what always gets me is like, there's a certain thing I go, ooh, that's fascinating. And even if it's at the very least a perspective that is of benefit. Do you know what I mean? It may not be the only one, but it is at the very least for me a perspective that's valid and of benefit. So anyway, that's my personal notion of a wrap up. I don't know if that wraps it up for you. But,
no, it's perfect.
Yeah. So
we'll
cool.
See. We'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I look forward to it.